A very good evening.
Hi, everybody. Uh, Welcome back. I think we have one question here about law optional that I think we can discuss in another video since we're lawyers and I did have law optional, after which I switched to sociology because I was actually more comfortable with sociology.
But this
Because
question that if you are trying for UPSC, can you take the judicial exam as well? Yes, you can.
yeah,
You
definitely.
can, of course, you can do judicial, you can do the state MPSC, state public service exam, and you can take your Indian engineering service, forest service. So there is no ban per se that if you are trying for UPSC. So I think this is what Mohit Saini wants to know.
In fact, it's a totally intelligent thing to do as well because I mean, you have two options. It's better to write two, three exams. And I think if you write a judicial services exam, you also become better acquainted with law as an optional in general. So I think I mean, you should. If you're doing UPSC, you can always take judicial exam and you should.
So
So,
how much polity you studied last week? All those who were there with us, did you go through the constitution articles? As I told you that you must, the Constitution of India must be your Bible for polity, because at least 15 questions you will. Yeah, Dheeraj, yes, good, you're studying, because at least 10 questions you will get from there. And if your polity is good, so at least 10 to 15 questions you'll be able to complete. Today we had decided to do history, so let's start with history.
So, one thing that I did, and I think you all should do, again, I always repeat this, but I think I'm going to keep repeating it because UPSC is a repetitive exam by the end of the day. You need to just be thorough with your first principles, your foundational knowledge. So, analyze past year question papers, and I did a quick from a website. Byju's has a breakup of what are the questions that have been asked since 2011. So I was just doing, since we were doing history today, I saw that in 2019, of course, all these breakups are subjective because a lot of people, like for instance, somebody could classify a culture question as a medieval history question. Somebody could also classify a current affairs question as a polity question, or a polity question as a current affairs question. So, keeping all these variables in mind, I looked at the kind of breakup that there is. So, if you look at it, see, you have to study according to priorities. So, polity this year they asked 15 questions, last year they asked 13 questions, but in 2017 they asked 22 questions, which means that there is a possibility that this year they'll ask more from polity because polity is usually a favorite. But then, because everybody starts studying polity, then UPSC likes to be unpredictable and change the pattern. But so that's why polity is very important. And the reason we stress on polity as the first subject is because polity is the most scoring. If you studied it well, if they asked 15 questions, at least 12 to 13 you could have answered if your polity preparation was at the top, as in if you were at
And
the top
as
of
we
your
had
game.
discussed, Constitution and Lakshmikant, they
Yeah.
should be your basis,
Yeah,
and
and
that
of
should
course your
cover.
PT 365, your schemes, and those two three documents that I had mentioned. I think those are also very important for polity. So, having said that, so polity was 15 questions, but history was 17 this year. And although Mrunal says there were 15 history questions, so again that's subject to debate. But Mrunal's analysis is really good, and you know what he does? He painstakingly every year does an analysis for every subject. So in prelims, he will analyze history for you, then he will analyze environment for you, which is why I keep saying, even if you take 1 week to acquaint yourself with how questions are asked, because there is always a deeper thing. You can understand patterns, you can understand what are the areas UPSC likes to focus on, how many tough questions are being asked, how many easy questions are being asked. But even here, I will give a disclaimer that just because Mrunal says something is tough doesn't mean it's tough. You know, it could be easy for you but tough for
Nothing
him.
is tough in this
No, but what I
exam.
mean is,
It
so
is
make
all
those
about
class.
how perseverant you are, how hardworking you are.
Yeah, but I mean to say that you must always, while that is completely true, nothing is tough because a lot of people say UPSC is tough. It's not. It's for intelligent people. I think ultimately you have to be intelligent and confident
and
and persevere.
hardworking. And as I said, that you should remember, recall. This exam is all about how much you are able to retain. You may read anything, but if you can't recall and reply, it's of no worth. So
Yeah.
how much you can remember. So it's a
But
lot about
intelligent
revision.
studying, intelligent studying, because there's so much in the market. So coming to history, he may classify it as tough, but it could be easy for you. So that's something you should be very cognizant of when you look at these analysis. But so he says that there's always a zigzag pattern. So for instance, this year, according to Mrunal, 15 questions were asked. uh, Yes, yes. You need to be. I'm glad that you remember that we need to be committed and do justice to your preparation. You have to have integrity in your preparation. I always say you know best how much you're studying, how much you remember, what is the output. But Ronald said that there's always a zigzag pattern followed, which means if, let's say, this year they ask 15, then usually they'll ask 17 to 21 in the next year, then come down to 14, 15. So if one were to go by Mrunal's analysis about history, this year they're going to ask more questions. That's what he says. Now, history, when we're talking about, is a very tricky one because it is less scoring than polity. History is so vast. History is ancient, medieval, modern, and art and culture. It is so vast that you can't possibly cover all of it, unlike polity, which has a very limited syllabus. It is,
Yeah, polity is sure shot
if,
that you will
yeah,
get, if there are 20 questions, you will get full 20 questions. So that means
I
40
would,
marks.
okay, I would
If
say
it is
18,
uh,
18,
no,
18.
no. At least I could say when we had subject for pol science and it used to be
Yeah, but
120
now there's
for
so
the
much.
main subject. In 120, I would do 115 and I would know that I'm through. So
Yeah,
polity
she was a
is
polity expert.
so polity. Just be thorough with your constitution and one base book. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, but coming to history, so history, on the other hand, is not that simple. Our sources are so many. I think it takes a lot of time. The hardest, when you're doing your sources, I think the most decision you have to make in history only. Which book to read, which to eliminate. Should I do the old NCRTs or should I do the new NCRTs or should I do Tamil Nadu? And even in that, you'll see, okay, I did the old, but they asked a question from the new NCRT. So then you get a FOMO and you're like, I should do new NCRTs as well. And that is why we were talking about first principles. There are first principles of UPSC history preparation in UPSC that you need to keep in mind. You will never be able to answer all questions in history, and there will always be, I could have done that. Like, you can walk out of the exam hall and you could have done an old NCRT, and you could walk out thinking, only if we're reconnecting. I don't know if this is um yeah, I think, okay, yeah, it's connected. 1 second. I'll just,
Yeah, connection was lost. Okay.
but it's lost again, but it's connected now. So yeah, are we, can you hear us now? Just let us know so we can continue.
Give a thumbs up or say hi. Say hello and we'll know that we are connected and you can hear us.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
you can hear us. So that is something with history sources. I think you have to be very important. Like, you have to be comfortable with the fact that you need to cut sources out, because history you have to remember so much. You cannot afford to have too many sources. Your sources need to be limited, because history has art and culture also, which I think we all
And
know.
it was very
Yeah,
difficult to remember
it's
all.
very difficult. The dances, we spend so much time trying to mug up. So I would say,
And then finally we left that.
yeah, I'm a
But your
confession,
national,
but I do
but your
not
freedom
advocate that.
movement, the Indian
Yeah,
national
see,
movement,
this year
Indian.
6 questions
Nah.
came from freedom struggle. So I'll talk about that. So, but there are just two, three first principles about history, that it is less scoring than polity, but lots of questions are asked. So be very clear about your sources, limited sources, but whatever you study, integrity of preparation, you need to know it well. The other thing in history that becomes important is elimination. Because in history, you may not know all the facts, but you may know, because UPSC will give you 3, 4 statements. You may know 2 statements. are correct or right, and then eliminating that, you will have to come to a conclusion. So I think elimination plays a bigger role in history. And since we are on elimination, I went through some of the past year papers for you. What, are we lost again, or is this old?
Hi. No.
I think we're fine, right? Yeah, I think our
Hmm.
connection is fine now.
Hmm.
uh okay, yeah, our connection is fine, right? Can you just once more let us know?
Just write fine.
Why is this happening if it's...
To the
Yeah,
point
it's
as well.
working. Fine, it's working. So here since we're talking about elimination, because I think elimination is really important, and I told you, I think in our first video, that Manish Agarwal sir had given some amazing tips. And again, this is all a risk. UPSC prelims is a risk. They want you to take risk. But in that, for instance, there's this question here, and as you can see, there's so much thing, because it's consider the following statements. Now I'll ask you, tell me what the answer is, so that I know if you've been studying your past year question papers. You want to ask them?
You ask.
Okay. Consider the following statements. One, Saint Nimbarka was a contemporary of Akbar. Two, Saint Kabir was greatly influenced by Sheikh Ahmad Sirhindi. Which of the statements given above are correct? One only, two only, both, or none? So, what's the answer? If you've seen Manish sir's video, then you will know how to go about this question. Does anybody know the answer? Do you want
I'll
to
ask the
repeat it?
question again. Saint Saint Nimbarka was a contemporary of Akbar. Saint Kabir was greatly influenced by Sheikh Ahmad Sirhindi. So which of the statements are correct?
Don't Google it.
Both are correct, or both are wrong,
Or
or
one
one is
only.
correct, or second is correct. So now two issues you need to know. Their dates. So now you tell.
Okay. So Manish sir had said this, and this was a question I had absolutely no idea of in prelims. I was like, okay, what is this? Though I did know that I had read enough about Kabir to know that I had never heard of Sheikh Ahmad Sirhindi. So I was like, I think this is wrong. But other than that, I don't know anything. I've never heard who Saint Nimbarka is. So there are two things that in this case, so I knew about Kabir. I was pretty sure that Kabir is wrong. The second one is wrong. But with respect to the first, now Manisha had said that there are two things in UPSC that are always wrong. Please don't take my word for it. Watch his videos, and this is only talking about. Yeah, this is only talking about what he said. So he said contemporaries are always wrong. Yes, D is the answer. So he said contemporaries, when UPSC asks, are always wrong, and when UPSC gives dates, they are always wrong. So, especially in the context of history. Now, I don't necessarily know, because I'll tell you what, I came to the correct answer. But if you can see, I did not attempt it because I didn't have the courage to make a guess, which was foolish. I should have had that leap of faith. And that's what UPSC prelims is. You need to have that leap of faith in that moment, that this will yeah, you need to have that, okay, it's a risk I'm willing to take. UPSC also wants you to take that risk anyway. So coming to it, um, the answer was D, and I think he was very correct, because last year in 2018, sorry, there was a question about barren island that he was discussing, and they had given a date like 91. And when you look at that question, you're like, okay, there's no way, how would I have known this? And that's when he said that UPSC asks, when they give you a random date out of nowhere, it's usually wrong, unless it's a very famous date. If it's the civil disobedience date, or Dandi March or something like that, then it's something you should know. But if it's something very random, in most cases, it's wrong. This is what he said. Once again, I have not done enough analysis of, prelims like UPSC's mind to tell what's correct, what's wrong, give principles. But I think Sir's done a very good job of it. I feel like there are a lot of questions, not a lot, but I would say at least two, three questions, which in prelims is always a lot, that I could answer because of his elimination tactics. So that's with respect to elimination. Elimination becomes important in history, so become good at learning how to eliminate with the limited knowledge you have. Now, coming to sources, that was my first principles on history. I told you that 2017 they asked 14 questions, 2018 they asked 15, and 2019 they asked 17. According to Baiju, according to Mrunal sir, they asked 15. So, yeah, coming to now our sources. Again, Mrunal sir has done a very fantastic job with regard to the breakup. If you look at 2018, he says, again, Mrunal says there were 21 questions from history. He says that there's 15 to 21 every alternate year. He said there were random sources, say, assuming there were 21 questions, random sources were 9 questions. Spectrum, say you could answer 8 questions. Nitin Singhania, say you could answer 2. And from either old NCRT or Tamil Nadu, you could answer 3. So this tells you that there were a whole bunch of questions that were completely things you'd never heard of. That's the problem with history. But still, I would say, and even in that, he classifies 13 as tough, though I don't think all are tough. Like when I went through the questions, I don't think in 2018 all the 13 questions that he classifies as tough were tough. But sometimes he classifies a question as medium, and I find that tough. So, medium, he said there were 2, and easy, there were 6. So, as you can see, history difficulty level is also higher. Same for 2019. In 2019, random sources, there were around 5 questions. He says somebody called Krishna Reddy, it's notebook 2. But Spectrum, you could answer 5. Nitin Singhania, you could answer 3. And if you had understood how to eliminate guesswork and, random information from here and there, I think you could have answered 1 or 2 more also. And he classified it as freedom struggle. Say there are 6 questions. Freedom struggle is so important. So even within history, you have to prioritize. I would say put modern history first. Speaking of modern history, I know there's a debate. 1 second. I know there's a debate in history which book to use. I had both, and I remember reading this very long ago. And but as great as this book is, I think it's a fantastic book for mains if somebody has the time. I did not have the time. And I always say that if you cannot pick a book again, then don't pick it up at all, at least closer to your preparation. If you have 2 years, then sure, go ahead, read as much and get knowledge. But if you have 1 year, then if you cannot pick it up again, do not pick it up. Simple. Unless there's something like, for instance, this had a chapter that Spectrum didn't have. So then to that extent I read this, like communalism. I read it from here because Spectrum doesn't deal with it as well as I'd like, or peasant movements. So, oh, the first one is India's struggle for independence, and this one is Spectrum. So I was talking India's struggle for independence, that is Bipin Chandra. I think Spectrum for prelims is a great book. I I mean I pretty much vouch for it. Again, it's a really, there's a lot in it. You don't have to read everything. Intelligent studying is key. So if you see the number of times I have read my Spectrum also, I'll first read it with a pencil and underline. First, I'll read it, then I'll underline with a pencil, then I'll write with a pen. So, what I mean is, you have to do it multiple times to get the gist. Then again, some pages there will be a lot of relevant information, and then there will be some pages where it's not that relevant for prelims. So, be intelligent about how you study, where you put your time to. Now, if there, for instance, there is you know survey of socio-cultural reform movements. This is a very important thing. They always ask. But that doesn't mean you need to know every word in each and everything. There will be 2, 3 points that are there, and you just need to pick up those points. And what points you need to pick up, again, you will only know that once you've done past your questions very well. So that's what I have to say about modern history. Do your spectrum well. In the end, you will have the they have a summary as well. I think that's very useful. A very good way of revising spectrum, I would say, is you look at the summary and you add additional things from the chapter that you think was
But
relevant.
go date wise, because if you are starting the freedom movement, if you've come to that, so if it's 1887, then go by what came after 87, what was in 89, what was in 91. Then you come to the 19th century, 1921. When did Cripps mission come? What was in the Act of 1935?
Yeah,
Was there
Government
something?
of India Act,
Government
yeah.
of India Act 1935. See, I remember even now.
Yeah.
So
Okay, she is really good at memorizing things. I don't think I'm that good. But she
see,
like
yes, Government of India Act 1935.
yeah, I
So
feel like she was only better at
when was the diarchy introduced? So you should know the diarchy came in 1935. So keep teasing your brain. This is all about teasing your brain.
yeah.
You
You
know.
know what Fayaz asks that ma'am, I think the problem is that we are not reading between the lines. Resources is not the problem. I agree with you. So that is why I think if we're clear that resources need to be limited, and if you're
Yeah,
only
resources just 2 to 3 books. Whatever you're doing it, just stick to those 2 3 books and keep reading again and again, because we can't enter your
yeah,
brains, but you need to keep challenging your brain.
yeah.
You need to keep revising. You need to have your precise notes,
So, but what
and
you
notes
were
in the book only. No need to
see,
make
what you're
written
saying
notes.
about reading between the lines, I agree with you to the extent that's where I would say if you have a difficulty with attempting past year questions, and mock tests become very important because, for instance, here I thought it was a brilliant example of how well you need to know. This year they asked you. See, some questions were really easy. Building of Kalyan Mandap was a notable feature in the temple construction in the kingdom of. So, if you've read, you know it's Vijayanagar. So, these are things that, they are very straightforward questions. If you know it, you know it. There's no confusion. But this was a tough one that we already did, the Saint Nimbarka one. But let's take this one with reference, and I want you to answer it. Yeah, notes make you lazy. Don't make notes.
Don't make notes
That's
in
why
the
I was
book
saying,
only. Just
yeah,
write
that's what I'm
it
saying.
there.
All my notes are only in the book on the side so that in the end I can look at, Wellesley's role, Fort William College. So, like, that's in my head. Charter Act of 1853. See,
Subsidiary
somebody said,
alliance.
yeah.
No.
Now, somebody said that we're not reading between the lines. And I think that's very interesting, especially for history, because history, the way UPSC asks its tougher questions, it needs to be understood. If you cannot understand the direction the history of the country has gone in, it becomes difficult. So, Charter Act 1853, I've written it promotes open competition. So, now if you understand in your head that, okay, Charter Act 1853 was enacted with the objective of promoting open competition.
I think civil services also would draw its strength from there. Open competitions.
So in the end, what happens is once you have a basic idea that okay, this act had was going in this direction. जैसे आप आज का भी एक्ट देख लो, कोई भी एक्ट आपने पास किया, लेट्स से हम लोग ने यूएपीए की बात की, अनलॉफुल एक्टिविटीज प्रिवेंशन एक्ट. Now, why was UAPA passed? UAPA was passed for to protect India from terrorists. In essence, that's what it's about. Terrorism, it's an anti-terror law. Once you know that, once you have an idea that okay, UAPA is an anti-terror law, remembering the features of UAPA becomes a lot more easier. Similarly, treat these acts also like that. That now you know that in history, and I think these acts are very important because they ask a question. One second, there's a question that I wanted to discuss because they asked. Yeah, consider the following statements about the Charter Act of 1813. Okay, now you have to give me the answer and don't Google. Integrity of preparation, I think, is our motto. So if you don't know it, be confident to say I don't know it because later, then when you study, you can study better. So consider the following statements about the Charter Act of 1813. 1. It ended the trade monopoly of the East India Company in India except for trade in tea and trade with China. 2. It asserted the sovereignty of the British Crown over the Indian territories held by the company. And third, the revenues of India were now controlled by the British Parliament. So, what's the answer? 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 1 and 3, 1, 2 and 3. Should I repeat the question? I'll repeat it. The following statements about the Charter Act 1813.
1813.
Yeah. It ended the trade monopoly of the East India Company. Mohit Saini says 1 and 2. Okay. Anybody else?
It ended the company was to retain the possession of territories and revenues for 20 years. Separate accounts were kept for commercial transactions.
Yeah, so 1 and 2 is correct. I think this is a very interesting question. To be honest, this is in debate because most people mark it as D, 1, 2, and 3, which means that revenues of India were now controlled by the British Parliament. They were, right?
Yeah. And the revenues for 20 years or more. The company was to retain the possession of territories and the revenues for 20 years.
Without prejudice to the sovereignty of the
crown.
crown.
Thus, the constitutional position of the British territories in India was defined explicitly for the first time.
Yeah. Okay. So I think this is so, but the answer is D. At least according to everybody, yeah, that's why UPSC needs to come out with its final answer key because there's still debate on the matter. But what I wanted to demonstrate from this question is that Mrunal says the answer is D, but I marked A. You know, even I didn't, I thought that the revenues of India were not controlled by the British Parliament. So the answer of this is still in debate, but I marked it as A. And the main point I want to make out here is that one, you need to memorize every feature of the questions that of the acts that you're reading, and the way you memorize this is if you have an idea, like if you know that 1813 the Charter Act was talking more of open competition and it was trying to end the monopoly of the East India Company. If you had a broad idea
But
about
I will
that,
tell you one more thing which is very relevant in this, that a sum of 1 lakh rupees was to be set aside for revival, promotion and encouragement of literature, learning and science among the natives of in India. So you have to remember this also. This is very important because education. They focused on education
yeah,
also.
I think
So this
education becomes a very
so this you should
important.
know.
Yeah, that makes Charter Act in 1813 very
And
important.
Christian missionaries were also permitted to come in India and preach their religion. So it opened doors for Christian missionaries. So when you are reading the act, certain points, what are the main points you need
Yeah,
to
you
remember?
need to know because
And that is how we also went about and go systematically one after the other. Then you can correlate that this happened then, this happened then, this happened, this happened, this happened, because it's all about dates.
yeah. So the point is, since you asked about reading between the lines, I wanted to say that you need to have a broad idea. Once you have a broad idea, ki, you know, this is how it was happening in the British administration, etc. Then you memorize the key points, and key points are very important. Now UPSC is also getting a little tired of asking very mainstream historical events, so it will ask you on education. Like ma'am said, I think that's very important, how important Charter Act was for education. In spectrum, I would say the most important part of spectrum is actually India under the Unit 9, which is India under British rule, governance, and other aspects. Because here they talk about constitutional, administrative, and judicial developments. So all your charter acts come out here. Then they talk about the policies that were enacted in India by the British. Then the economic rule, economic impact of British rule in India, the freedom of the press, sorry, the development of the Indian press. So this, I would say, towards the end, focus on these last few chapters a lot. A lot of questions can come from here. There's a lot of information in here, even in terms of the viceroys that came, which viceroy proceeded over what. These are very important things that you need to know. So you,
Like doctrine of subsidiary alliance.
yeah,
You Lord Wellesley. So these things should be in your mind, that you don't And if you are thorough, you will not waste your time. Otherwise, you will keep wasting your time eliminating, and in the end, you will be missing out 10 questions,
Yeah,
10, 20
like I think this
questions.
was a classic example of Charter Act. I had done Charter Act, I'm not kidding, 10 times, and I still wasted my time here because I wasn't sure between, like, and I think I'm still not sure between 1 and 2 and 1, 2 and 3. So that's what's really, I think I ultimately marked 1, 2, I'm not sure anymore. But the point is, so you need to know it on your fingertips because know that even the things you know so well, prelims will throw a googly and you'll be like, is this true or is this not? Okay, so that was with respect to this question. One more thing I wanted
When
to,
was the under which plan the rejection of the demand for a full-fledged Pakistan? What was that? Which plan was that? You tell me modern history. What were, can you tell me? Three-tier executive and legislature at provincial, section, and union levels. Where did the three-tier system come? Which plan talked of? Princely states were no longer under the paramountcy of the British government. So, like this,
will and talked of these
which plan
things.
talked of that? That princely states were no longer under the British government. They were free to enter into arrangement with successor governments of the or the British government. So these are the things you have to
You
pick
need
up.
to know this is the cabinet mission plan.
Uh,
It's very
very
important.
important.
It is very dicey. You're right. Prelims is the
Uh,
most dicey. I think if you clear prelims,
Mains you
mains.
will clear. It will be a
No, I mean
cakewalk.
I wouldn't say you will
It will
clear,
be a
but
cakewalk.
it's definitely much easier than prelims.
Prelims now is tougher. So, like I said, like where it was under the cabinet mission plan, full plan, demand for plan. Pakistan was rejected. So these things you have to learn when you are reading. How much you can
Yeah,
retain?
guys, like,
You
so
have to
that's the
see. Like
thing.
there,
You
I
need
picked
to,
up that 1 lakh was given for education. It also allowed missionaries to come. Now I'll
and that's
remember it in my
important.
exam.
Yeah, because see, and this is something she has a really good knack of, and that I learned from her, that pick up these important points. Pick up where you think UPSC can trick you, where UPSC can ask you. And I think UPSC has asked also. She has a knack of picking up things that are relevant for the exam. I think if you are too much of an intellectual or academic, you become, you start reading too much and you want to read everything. But you must always, something I think you should adopt from ma'am is, she knows, she's like, this will come, this is important, leave this is not important. So
Yeah. So you need to know because there's certain things which are very obvious.
yeah,
So like this
I
time
mean
the
it's
role of
obvious to
speaker.
you, but yeah.
This role of speaker is very important this time. So you will need to know.
Yeah, role of speaker, defection, these are areas in news you need to know. Something else that's in news is religion and culture, and I was quite surprised, but UPSC actually asked quite a lot of questions, I mean considerable number of questions on secularism in the mains. So I think,
In fact, cabinet mission also introduced the concept of proportional representation. A constituent assembly was to be elected by provincial assemblies by proportional representation. General, Muslim, and Sikhs. So this you must remember. These are the crux. So one thing you'll remember is your cabinet mission plan. I'll keep asking you as you go. Go ahead.
yeah, so that is one. um, let's just do modern history today. We can do ancient, medieval, and culture tomorrow because I think it will be really long otherwise. Uh, but I wanted to say one thing, something someone had asked before, that NCRT I did from 6th to 12th. Yeah, that's okay. I think 6th to 12th, Dheeraj likes your confidence. Yeah. Uh, Consolidated list, Spectrum has everything. This is like your go to for UPSC preparation, modern history. If you can do this well, and you need to do this at least 3 4 times before prelims. I would say 3 4 is also, less, but you'll obviously get faster once you do more revision. But
Yeah, revision and keep
you need to know these things on your fingertips. There's no way around it.
like we talk so much of separate electorates. When under which plan were they? Reforms. Morley Minto reforms talked of separate electorates. So these are the things you keep doing.
So, so one more thing I want to Yeah, Gandhi is very important. Like every year, you think, okay, UPSC is not going to ask about Mahatma Gandhi because it's asked enough, but it will always ask about Mahatma Gandhi. So, Mahatma Gandhi is such an important topic. You need to do it. Even this year, like they asked, consider the following pairs. All India Anti Untouchability League, was Mahatma Gandhi a leader? All India Kisan Sabha, was Swami Sahajanand Saraswati a leader? Self Respect Movement, E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar. Obviously, a lot of these are very popular movements and organizations, and these are things you need to know. This is again something you'll find in the end bit of your spectrum. You must do the end of spectrum. The last few chapters must be on your fingertips. So that is something I'm going to, for modern history, I'll say this. And okay, let me ask you this. It's an interesting question. Which one of the following groups of plants was domesticated in the New World and introduced into the Old World? I'm repeating it. Which one of the following groups of plants was domesticated in the New World and introduced into the Old World? 1. A. Tobacco, cocoa, and rubber. B. Tobacco, cotton, and rubber. C. Cotton, coffee, and sugarcane. D. Rubber, coffee, and wheat. So, what's the correct answer? Should I repeat the options? I'll repeat the options once. Uh, which one of the groups was domesticated from the New World into the Old World? Tobacco, cocoa, rubber, or tobacco, cotton, and rubber? C. Cotton, coffee, and sugarcane. D. Rubber, coffee, and wheat. Now, see, these are the questions, like somebody said, that you need to read between the lines. This is not going to be in your history book in a line out there. You have to use your mind. And these are the kind of
How to
questions.
tell the answer? How will you
So,
use
how
your
did I
mind?
do this? If you can see, this is an elimination technique. So, I know for a fact that cotton exists in India. Cotton was there for a long time. If you've read enough history, you know that. So, B and C are out of the picture because they both have cotton. B and C are out. Now, that leaves you with A and D. A is tobacco, cocoa, and rubber, and D is rubber, coffee, and wheat. Now, the thing is, I know that plantation crops, wherever the British introduced plantations,
Coffee they got.
so those were new crops. They were not always there in the territory of all these colonies, the old world or whatever. And new world is what? America. America was considered the new world, North America and South America. And another thing is, wheat is something that was always grown in India. If you've read your ancient history to modern, there are many mentions of wheat. So you know that wheat could not have come to India. This could also be classified as a world history question, but this is pure logic question. If you have studied and you can apply your mind, this is a throwaway question. So the answer was tobacco, cocoa, and rubber. These are plantation crops. We know, I think we read somewhere, I think in geography, there are rubber plantations in Malaysia. We know tobacco plantations were introduced by the British. Cocoa plantations are in Africa, even in South India. So, this is how you have to, in these questions, apply your knowledge. There is no substitute. That's why when I said UPSC is for intelligent people, it doesn't mean high IQ. It means somebody who is willing to use their brain and who's willing to apply their mind. That is, I think, very important in UPSC preparation. Yeah, pure logic, like you said. Pure logic and pure application of what you've studied. That's why, like, आप पढ़ो इतना, but इसको आप apply कैसे करते हो? UPSC
हाँ,
is
ये नहीं
only
कि
looking for
दिमाग बंद
that.
करके सिर्फ किताब में रीड कर रहे हैं.
And
No,
even if you mugged
challenge,
everything
challenge. Yeah.
up, even if you mugged everything up, how do you apply it? How do you eliminate? And the thing is, I keep telling you guys that, when you do it here, it's much easier to come to an answer. But when you have 2 hours in the exam and you know that every right and wrong counts. Like every right, wrong, and the ones you don't attempt.
And if you spend too much time on one question, you are going to miss out two
Yeah, and
questions
it's
there.
a long
So
paper.
time management is
You
very
may
important.
complete during your mock tests, but in the actual exam, you kind of take more time. So yeah, mains UPSC repeats in polity. That is true. This year I was writing mains and I was like, uh, कुछ logic भी लगाना पड़ेगा. Yes. So the thing is, this time I was writing and I realized there were a few
You tell all the
questions
syllabus
in mains.
those books also.
No, I will do more. I will
Acha.
do ancient and
So let's do
medieval.
modern. See, and in
Because I
fact,
think,
even I feel you get more questions from modern history.
yeah, but no, I think we do get, obviously, like even
Because
in history, your number one priority has
is
to be
modern history,
modern
the
history.
freedom movement, freedom struggle, and modern history.
Yeah.
Because there will be at least 10 questions from freedom struggle. They usually 8 to 10 questions. So you must do your freedom
Yeah,
struggle.
freedom struggle is important, Gandhi is important, spectrum is important. Again, spectrum is very big. So pick out important points. I think ma'am really explained what seems important. You pick those out. What is different that UPSC can
And
ask?
what came from there which is even relevant today.
Yeah.
So you need to know, because they are going to give you the best services in the country. So they want you to be updated on the latest things.
Yeah. So that is relevant, and something that you said about UPSC repeating. Sorry, I think I forgot my flow of thought. But UPSC does repeat. Mains mein to I think there's quite a lot of repetition, and I think after prelims maybe I could make a video explaining mains to you guys, because since this is a prelims preparation oriented, I have a really good structure that I think you could follow for at least GS preparation and mains, even if you've not studied that much GS. But with respect to prelims, I will say modern history, that you need to apply your knowledge. UPSC is getting tired of people who mug up history and come there. So you need to mug up history also, but now you need to apply it. And with respect to your prelims general studies, I'm sorry, this is important. This is very important. I'm going to show it to you guys in every video that we make, because I'll tell you why. In this, I have attempted all, if you can see, modern history. I have attempted from 1995. And if you see, I've made tiny, tiny notes that, I will be honest, I think I didn't have the time to refer to in the end. But if I could have, I think it would have got me few more marks. But with prelims, it's always about clearing the cutoff. At max, clearing it with, let's say, 5, 6 to 10 marks, so that you feel like, okay, I know I'm clearing it, whatever the cutoff, final cutoff is. But prelims is not about getting 140, unless you're, of course, a super genius, then go ahead, or you're an engineer, because I think engineers are really good at cracking prelims. But whatever it is, you keep all that energy for mains. Keep that for mains. You need to show exceptional performance in mains. In prelims, you need to clear the cutoff. Always study being clear in mind that in prelims you have to be above average. Excellence you have to demonstrate in mains. So that is why I will say, by this, there's a lot of information here that you will get. You will see UPSC repeats. If UPSC does not repeat questions, UPSC repeats areas that it likes to ask questions from. So at least those areas will be solidified. There are a bunch of random facts that you'll get which will help you to eliminate, because as we've seen in history, elimination becomes very important. So I could have read something here that is in my mind, maybe it's just one statement, but if I can even mark one statement as wrong in UPSC, that means I can probably arrive at the right
Cookie
answer.
movement was in which state? Can you tell me? Cookies revolt. Where was it?
ये तो टफ हो गया.
Huh?
मतलब
No, it came in our time also.
हाँ, I mean it's
You
quite
need to
tough.
know the movements. One day you want to revise with me, you can revise. Cookies revolt was Manipur. Because these are the questions that will just throw you off the thing and you lose out marks. Because usually all these movements from northeast are always there. So please read them.
And
Tribal
also,
movements.
guys, remember, you need to remember things well, but I keep saying towards the end, you need to read it again and again, because there's too much information in there that I also don't remember. Like today, you'll ask me this, I'll be like, I have no idea, but I know during the exam I knew it, because you're in that zone, your brain is retaining. It's a lot of information. So I always say, now that the exam is coming closer, make intensify your preparation so that you can just put more and more information in your brain, as in revise everything, so that you remember more, so that when the exam time comes, you're confident about what you know. So that's all I think I have to share. I think I could go on about modern history, because with all these past year question papers, but I would say again, pick up one of these general studies chapter wise
and
question
solve it.
papers, solve it.
There is no other
Ans-
way. You need to solve. And see, this is how we did. We've solved it, and there was no coaching. She was working from home, studied from home, made it from home. Be it prelims, be it mains.
yeah,
But you have to solve the question
and I
papers.
just want
And
to,
this for history, modern India, you have to do 10 questions.
and
So 20 from polity, 10 from modern India. So 30 is 2 marks. 60 marks are safe
yeah,
for you. So you've got
yeah.
60 marks.
4th October, only 2 months left, and how much current affairs? Current affairs, I will keep break up from Byju's. In 2017, they asked 34 questions. In 2018, they asked 28 questions. And 2019, they asked 22 questions. But now UPSC is also, the lines are becoming blurry. In polity, they will ask some static, some current. They will also, same for history, there could be something in news that will come out of current, and then something of the past. So it's blurry. I can't tell you how much, but I would say your PT 365 again needs to be on your fingertips. It's very helpful. And, in fact, one sec, I'll just finish this and tell you. And another thing I noticed is UPSC is now
Can you
asking in
take a
prelims.
picture of this and put it for them there?
Oh, this is a very shoddily done thing.
No, they know what question breakup is
Okay,
there. So
but I can put in the links if you like in the description later. But because this is from Mrunal, this is Mrunal and Byju's, a simple Google search will get it for you. But
since you've made
the
it,
thing is, first in post independence, yeah, UPSC is asking sometimes questions from post independence. I thought there was a question, I can't remember, in prelims from national security, internal security as well. So I realized that now UPSC is asking some things from the main syllabus also, like the old world new world is actually, you would have to have an idea of world history to understand, or you have decent general knowledge, but world history would help you eliminate the come to the right conclusion. So that's why I think it's always better. Now we're closer to prelims, so we're doing a prelims focused preparation. But if you're writing next year, even for prelims, I think it's always good to do an integrated preparation. They'll ask random things, like they asked about Indira Gandhi nationalizing coal. That is a post independence question, but again, that's not something you should spend your time on if you haven't done it already. It's a cost benefit analysis. One question till you, don't waste your time. See where you can score the marks. So that's all I have to say. Yeah, that's all I have to say, at least with respect to history today. Do you have anything else to say?
no, I think this book is good enough for your modern India. Go through it at least 10 times, and fix a time, 3 hours every day, 2 hours every day, and then you do it. And once you finish reading it, suppose you've read it in the night, morning when you get up, don't open the book, just run it in your mind. How much have you retained?
Active recall. It's called active
So
recall.
morning you should be recalling all that you had studied the previous day, and in case you can't recall, then open the book, and at that time when you read, you will retain.
Because the thing is, like, for instance, I haven't touched my books in months, so I don't remember. There's things that I'm starting to forget. But the more you acquaint yourself with the thing, the more you will remember. So that's why, if you look at the forgetting curve also, they always say that you have to keep repeating it, keep looking at it over and over
Recall.
again
So that's my advice to you. Early morning when you get up and you
to
don't want to
strengthen
leave
your
your
memory.
bread, no, you don't want to leave your
Oh my
bed.
god, I have to address this. Please do not do these things. I had actually kept in my mind that I will tell you, don't waste your time. I know a lot of toppers recommend, but if your job is just to clear prelims, don't read Yojana, don't read ARC. ARC summary, you can read if you have a really thin one. Like, I've bought 2 3 from old Rajendra Nagar, and found it a lot of waste of time. I think if somebody
No,
has
Yojana and
summarized,
all for prelims is absolutely
yeah, prelims
foolish.
and all too, and even
Go
who
by
would go
these
on all
basic
this?
books.
I
Like
would,
I said,
again, I
yeah,
still say
Constitution, then
Anu
this.
Kumari's book list is gold. She is somebody who was ranked 2. I think she studied very to the point. She did such a good. I think she's just fantastic when it comes to understanding how to study UPSC because her aim was to clear it. ERC and all, if you have time, you can make notes, etc. But I think if you're a first attempter, it's quite tough to, do all of this and study ARC. Yeah, thank you for the honesty. It comes from integral. I mean, our parents have taught
Yeah,
us to be
that's one
honest.
thing. Integrity, I always say,
Is a
you may
very,
lose out something today, but don't leave your integrity, don't leave your honesty.
yeah, that is something that,
So recall factor is very important. Whatever you are reading today, morning first thing, revise. See how much you could retain from yesterday. Then solidify it and then go on something fresh.
yeah, and I think in the prelims,
And eventually, initially you will take a lot of time, but by the time it's
yeah.
fourth day, fifth day, in half an hour you would have revised everything which you've done in the last week.
And the last thing I want to point out because I found it so funny is, Mrunal sir always talks about this Sapna theory. Like हिंदू में मतलब एक आर्टिकल आ गया उसमें एक एक वर्ड मेंशन हो गया लाइक तानसेन का कहीं कोई रैंडम आर्ट एंड कल्चर आर्टिकल में and UPSC has picked it up and made a question out of it. So Mrunal sir is always like, मुझे कोई सपना आया था, कि मुझे सपने में आया था कि UPSC ये लेकर इस पे क्वेश्चन बनाएगा. And I found that Sapna theory so funny because it's true. A lot of aspirants fall into this trap where they're like, UPSC made this twisted question from here because they made this like 2 3 questions like this. You start doing PhD in everything you are studying.
Don't do PhD.
Yeah.
Don't do
Don't
PhD.
fall into that trap. Look, you are
One
a
book is
generalist.
enough. Just
Yeah,
read.
just do this. You
Not
may
needed.
not know those complex questions that
You don't
UPSC
need
picks
to.
up. You don't need to know.
UPSC goes very precise, and you need to get 100 marks. 100 marks.
105 to 110 is a very good score to get. So understand your strengths, your weaknesses, how you eliminate. So like whatever your comfortable thing is, like let's say you need 60 to 65 correct and you need 25 wrong and then you leave the rest. You need to know how you are going to attempt the paper. Yeah, don't have fear to बिल्कुल भी नहीं होना है. Exam में you have to go very confident. मतलब आप पहले रो लो बाद में रो लो. आई थिंक आई डिड बोथ. बट एग्जाम में नहीं डरना है, नहीं रोना है. अब आप फंस गए हो, देन यू गिव इट योर बेस्ट. Like I think those 2 hours you have to give it your best. But I keep telling you guys, and I'm going to say it again because it was something that cost me. Like I think I learned is that we are casual when we do it before the exam. We think, oh, sab aata hai. But it's a whole different ball game when you are in the paper. When so many people, they say कि यार ये तो बड़ा easy था, पता नहीं लोग इतने डरते क्यों हैं. Because in those 2 hours, you've just studied too much to remember
और
everything.
जब कोई ऐसा सवाल बोलता है बहुत इजी था तो मैं मन ही मन सोचती हूँ कि बेवकूफ, इसको सवाल समझ में ही नहीं आया, इसका होना नहीं है. So,
Yeah,
I always laugh. Teacher बड़ा easy था मैंने.
never
No,
think
you
if
cannot.
there are a lot of people who are failing, they are failing for a reason. It's not that people are dumb. It's just you need to be intelligent. You need
And
to be
your
more
minds
intelligent
and your
than the
minds
crowd.
become lazy because you're only absorbing and you're not
Do not
challenging
shift
your
to
mind.
Delhi. Do not shift to Delhi. Maybe one day I'll make an entire video of how people should not shift to Delhi. But because I feel so passionately about that subject, I don't think it helps. If you really need help, you can always take online guidance if you need it. I think ultimately what you do with your mind, like I said, no coaching institute could have prepared you for an old world, new world question. And there are quite a few questions that are application based, as you see in prelims and even in mains, that only come by honing your own mind.
How can anybody teach you speaker, then parliament, then 2/3 voting? That only you have to read and remember.
You saw toppers exaggerating. I want to say I wrote CLAT also and I was ranked 35 and it was my first attempt. I wrote it with 12th standard and that time also there was a lot of fear, CLAT this, that. And there were some people who studied a lot. Of course, there are some people who study a lot and they do very well also. That's kudos to them, like maybe they'll be the ones who'll be rank 1 and they'll be rank 1 by, let's say, a lot of marks. But see, ultimately, a competitive exam is you want to clear it. You want to clear it and go to the other side.
Even for CLAT, we made a strategy. And she was
But
here in
CLAT, I
Mumbai.
would say, is different.
And no, because Bangalore is again only 50, rank 50. If she had to come in rank 50 to get NLS Bangalore, and she got 36.
35.
So,
Can you
35.
stop messing up my rank every
So what I'm
single
trying to
time?
say, that planning it, that out of 30,000 students you have to get in first 50. So, but you make it there.
My thing is, just study less, study well, study with
Study less, study well.
integrity.
I mean, not
Yeah.
less means ki you study 4 hours. Study your 10 hours. Your books may be
Your
less.
resources must
Resources
be.
may be less, but
It
you
is
must be thorough.
self-study, introspecting, and challenging yourself. Today I was just thinking that ultimately, because while just reading everything, reacquainting, I took out all the boxes because I had kept all my books away, and I realized, okay, you end up reading a lot for this exam. It's crazy how much you read. But there's something that I realized, and I thought I should share with you guys. I thought that UPSC is not for the herd. The herd will never clear UPSC. UPSC takes people who rise above the herd, because the people who can rise above herd mentality are the ones who will make effective leaders for our country.
You can't be followers.
If
You
you
have
are
to be
a
leaders.
herd and a follower, I don't think your chances of clearing UPSC are very bright. So, and it's not something like I was part of the herd mentality, but now I realize that, okay, this is a herd mentality that exists, and I'm not going to be part of it anymore. And I think that is a very big key to success
So
in
I
this
think it's
exam.
already we've done 55 minutes. So anyway, if there are some questions or any issues, you can write it over there on the YouTube channel, and then we can reply back to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And study hard, guys. Now I agree, even I'm a little invested. Please study well. It will be so wonderful to see all of you clear prelims. And I know Manoj asked, I think it was Manoj, right? Yeah, Mohit, sorry. Mohit Saini asked for and that making a law optional. I think we could cover law optional on some time, although I don't know how many people here are doing law optional. But I guess we
But
could
law, that optional is not required for prelims, is it?
not for prelims.
So we are doing this only prelims,
Then
because
after
I want you
prelims,
to do
I
prelims
could
only.
help you with law and sociology as well, because those are the two options I have a brush with. I studied for law, but I wrote with sociology. So, but I will say for now, focus on prelims.
Just focus on
Because
prelims.
you need to clear prelims to write mains. And a lot of people are like, it's okay, let's do both. But I think 2 months before the preparation, you have
Because
to
this is
focus on
already
prelims.
August, September. Yes, 60 days. Now you have 63 days. So 63 days should be 100% only prelims.
Yeah. It should only be prelims. Now forget mains. Your time for mains is gone for the time being. Because if you do not clear prelims, there is no point of studying for mains. It's as simple as that. So jaan laga do. Abhi stress mat lo, but get into the mode. Get into the mode. And oh, thank you so much. That's such a sweet thing for you to say.
And revise, recall, revise. Don't make your mind lazy. Like I was asking you, there was some other question I'm going to ask you. I'm going to keep asking you questions. Because ultimately it is.
And when you feel lazy, open these questions and do them. There are 255 questions in this one, and I guess there would be a few more from this year.
What was ECA movement? EKA. ECA movement.
Yeah, this is very popular. They asked quite a lot.
So
I
you need to
remember
know.
this one.
Where was it? Which state was it? ECA movement.
ECA movement.
You tell them.
Uttar Pradesh.
And what was it about?
That I don't. Farmers agitation.
The issues involved were high rents, 50% higher than recorded rates, oppression of thikadars in charge.
See, I said farmers. What did I say? ECA movement, UP, farmers issues, farmer agitation. I had a broad idea of what it was. Of course, when I was closer to the exam, I remembered details. But when you have a broad idea, it becomes easier to remember the details. So that is what I mean. And broad ideas, when you understand the issue at hand, when you understand history, then the broad idea is clear, then memorizing becomes easier. So first understand, then memorize. That is my simple formula. But even ECA movement, the very simple things, that it was high rents was an issue. Grassroots leadership is what made the movement really interesting. It's what set it apart. And there was this person who was prominent here, Madan Parsi or something. But anyway, Madari Parsi and low caste leaders. So that is what made Eka movement very prominent, So these are the things you need to remember. Again, yeah, that's all. I think I've
Okay, bye bye. See you
yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah. Tomorrow we'll discuss ancient and medieval. And if you have any more questions, just let us know. Social media is always there to connect. And study hard, guys. Study hard, study well.
Bye bye. Bye.